Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik.
All right, we're live. Christian Schauf, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, man. Good
Yeah,
to be doing this.
Yeah, it's good to get to have you on. We, I guess, got to know each other over the last couple of years quite a bit, and been looking to do this with you in person versus, online, because we do spend a decent amount of time around each other. But usually these events, busy. Yeah, it's so busy, and by the end of the night, you're talking all day and doing this stuff. It's like you really don't want to sit down and
you've talked out. You're like talked out, right?
Yeah.
I'm my life's been pretty, small business for years and single, and it's like I've gotten bad at just talking a lot.
Yeah.
It's like I realize it's like a skill that you develop when you're in social settings a lot. You learn to just like build up that talk muscle, and I'm pretty bad at it, so I'll do my best here, man.
Yeah, no, man, I think you'll do just fine, but I like to keep it pretty conversational. Although I do have some questions for you that are more interview style, but mostly just kind of keep it conversational. And it's funny because like I said, we got to know each other over the last couple of years, but your company, Uncharted Supply Co, is like right up the realm of like what my previous kind of work was with, and safety and preparedness and doing those types of things and then also from the standpoint of, I've kind of carried that over into the podcast and helping people plan. And it was like, man, it's a perfect guest to be able to come on.
Heck yeah, man.
So I wanted to talk just a little bit as we got started here, kind of a little bit about your background, who you are, kind of like from a hunting perspective, and then also from a business perspective, because that's been interesting to me. And as I've gotten to know you, I feel like I keep learning more and more.
My life has been all over the place, but the weird thing is it's all really dovetailed into what I'm doing now. I really feel like this is what I was kind of learning and building up towards my whole life. So that makes me feel really confident in what we're doing and how I'm spending my time. But my story, I grew up in northwest Wisconsin in a town called Barron, which if anybody knows me, they know my dog Barron. Yeah. They're always like, oh, that's your dog's name. Yeah, he's named after where I grew up, which I thought was fun. A dairy farm, crops. My great-grandpa had started a wood shavings business where he'd drive up to the north shores of Minneapolis or Minnesota and get wood shavings from these paper mills and lumber mills and use that for animal bedding. So we had several businesses on the farm. We had canola seed, like we'd turn into biodiesel, a lot of crops, cattle, the shavings business. And so I grew up working pretty hard.
Yeah.
My parents were very entrepreneurial, and I think that stuck with me a little bit too. But yeah, grew up on a dairy farm. Went to school at University of Wisconsin-Madison. After that, I moved to Menominee, Wisconsin for a job for a little bit, but was playing in a band with my brother and some friends, and was just like, I'm going to stick with this until it stops growing, and it just kept growing. So I did that for like 10 years. Ended up putting 3 albums out. I mean, we worked with guys like Prince and shared a practice space with Soul Asylum, and we were in the whole Minneapolis
nice
music scene. So it was really a interesting chapter of life to be playing in a rock band and just touring around. We ended up playing in 20 or 30 countries when it was all said and done. Really big shows. I mean, we did a national anthem in a NASCAR race once. It was like 176,000 people, like pretty nutso, live on ESPN.
What was the name of your band?
The band's name was Catch Penny, and we had nobody's ever heard of us because we had opportunities to talk with record labels and stuff, but those contracts were slavery contracts, and we were just making money playing in a band kind of regionally and branching out from there here and there, and just kind of that was the path we took. And so I don't think anybody listening to this podcast knew who we were, but it was a fun rip. And towards the end of it, we were at South by Southwest playing, which is a big music festival, and we got approached by the guys from the Pentagon desk. They asked us to go play for the troops overseas. So we're like, yeah, let's do it. So our first trip, I think it was 3.5 weeks. We went through 4 or 5 countries in the Middle East, Kuwait, Qatar, Iraq, places like that.
Yeah.
Got to know the people over there really well. We went over really well. I'll never forget. We flew out to this base called Camp Korean Village, and they hadn't had entertainment for a long time. And we're green. We haven't done this before.
Yeah.
5 guys in a band. We fly out in these Ospreys. We land at this base. And I'm sitting in the dining facility looking around. I'm like, It's all dudes here. It's all sober dudes here.
Yeah.
And they just brought 5 guys in to sing for him. I'm like, this is so freaking awkward, right? I'm like, what do we do? I'm like, start sweating. I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I sign up for? And I looked across the dining facility, and there's this like a refrigerator with the sliding glass doors, and it's full of like O'Doul's beer, like non-alcoholic beer.
Non-alcoholic.
And I was like, can I get 3 or 4 cases of beer brought to the stage? And they were like, these kids are crazy, like whatever, pound non-NA beers. So we get up on stage, and I'm like, let's just play some fun cover. Let's play some Led Zeppelin. Like, let's make this fun for these guys.
Yeah.
And we handed all the beers. We had this big beer spraying fight, and people started stage diving, and it just turned into a party.
Yeah.
And it was really
with non-alcoholic beer.
With non-alcoholic beer.
Yeah,
but, those guys just needed like a little bit of a light to light their fuse. And, they were running up and jumping off. We throw them our guitars, and they play songs. And so anyways, this is a long story. It's a podcast. We'll just tell it. But the guy who's in charge of all the programs was like, this is the best show I've ever seen, and you guys got to come back more and more. And so I started talking to him, trying to figure out, well, what's the hardest part about your job? And at the time, there were 340 bases, roughly, and only 30 were getting entertainment because it was too dangerous to convoy, and so you had to fly. And they were using these PA systems out of Kuwait. They were super big and old, and they'd only fit into like a C-130, so a big airplane, which necessitates a big landing strip. So all these little bases didn't have landing strips, couldn't get in. So we went home and figured out how to fit a PA system into a Black Hawk helicopter, which allowed us to hit all these bases. So for the next 10 years, speeding along, we did a lot of work in providing entertainment for all the troops overseas. So I went over like 39 times personally. My band ended up doing 150 shows, named Armed Forces Entertainers of the Year. But we also sent a thing called Bikes Over Baghdad. We'd build skate parks at the bases, and I'd take all the X Games guys over. We'd guide around Hoobastank or System of a Down or the Spin Doctors. Like, I'd go over with them, and I'd be responsible for their safety. And you get into Blackhawks and fly into some little base, and then a firefight would break out, and you thought you're going to be there 4 hours, and you're there 3 days. So this is all leading into my current company.
I want to add something there because the Bikes Over Baghdad, that was something where I was telling you, my brother, who was in the Air Force, was when he was overseas. He's like, when we were at the Pennsylvania Total Archery Challenge, he's like, man, he's like that name is familiar, and he was talking about you and everything. He's like, I feel like. I think he had heard you on a podcast or something before talking about it. He's like, I've watched those shows. He's like, I've watched the Bikes Over Baghdad shows. It was just so funny.
That's so cool, man.
Now, both in different lives at this point, but it was kind of funny.
It was an amazing experience, and as fun as playing in my band was, the BMX tours lit people up. Just huge crowds, and they had a lot of fun with that. So that was a really fun chapter. But, leading to my business now, which is kind of preparedness and emergency and safety and thoughtfulness, like, I spent 10 years taking people through war zones, looking out for them. And that really taught me a lot and kind of programmed me in that way. So when I was home, I helped my buddy Joe Heron start a company called Crispin. It was a hard apple cider company. We sold that to Miller Coors. And then on these tours, we started getting sponsors like Harley Davidson and GoPro and brands like that. And so that was going so well, they'd asked me to do other stuff when I was home stateside. So, my life has been all over the place, right? I was doing music, I was doing marketing, I started a cider company. I was doing some work for Harley Davidson and GoPro. And long story short, the war, drew down. So that slowed down dramatically. And I ended up moving to Southern California because I got an apartment out there because there was 4 or 5 clients out there that I was working with. Ended up taking a full-time job. Didn't really like it. A couple of years in, just wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah.
And was like, what's next? And I'd always wanted to be in the outdoor industry. I loved hunting. I loved mountain climbing and skiing and biking. And at the same time, I was coming from a farming and military experience into Southern California where, anybody listening from California, I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm ragging on you, but my experience was everybody there was kind of looking to push the easy button anytime something bad happened. Like somebody else is going to fix a problem. Yeah. And it was just the first time I was around a large group of people or society where that was the mentality versus let's fix it.
Yeah.
And it just hit me across the face like, wow, nobody's really thinking about the space of like providing emergency supplies for people and helping people navigate the unforeseen things that happen every day. So I kind of leaned into it, did a bunch of research, and then started Uncharted.
Yeah. And that was what you were talking about. It was like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah,
now?
about 6 years ago.
About 6 years ago that you had started that. No, and that was so cool because again, like with my background with these things, that's what drew me to you and your company, like from right off the bat when I first saw it. Not only is it a cool logo with the dog, and but just like the the products that you had were very specific as far as for being able to help you, but in a wide variety of things based on, your vehicle, whether you're hunting, all of these different things. One mistake that I had made years ago, even with the thought process I had and the background I had in safety and training and preparedness and that stuff, was I had, one first aid kit that I'd transfer between all my different things. I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I'd always forget it. It'd be in like my hunting bag,
right.
And then I wouldn't have it here. So like, as I've come along, it's like, okay, I have specific kits that are built for, each application. And I got questions on that last year. I did like a hunting, my truck is how I set it up for hunting, go on these trips and like all the stuff that I carry and stuff there. And it was just like, that was an interesting part of it. But
yeah, I mean, when I started, the thing I realized was, you look at first aid kits and you look at bug out bags, survival kits. If you want a survival kit, you're going to end up in a military surplus store, and it's like some dusty backpack they couldn't sell, full of stuff they couldn't sell. Like I bought a bunch of them because I wanted to see if people had them. I'll never forget, I bought one at a blow dart gun with 3 darts in it. Like, what is this, the Attack of the Squirrels? You get one practice shot? Yeah. Like, what are you going to use that for? And then the first aid stuff, you go to Walmart or Target, and it's like a 500-piece kit. It's 400 Band-Aids. But like 400 Band-Aids never fixed anything. No. So, when we build products, to your point about specific for the use case, I really try to reverse engineer from the time of, okay, here's the accident. Like, what do people need? What are they actually going to carry? I mean, you've seen our products. We've got stuff from 130 grams, which is lighter than your iPhone, that is designed to be on you 24/7, up to 16-pound kits that you can keep in your car or on a shelf, but they're still pretty easy to carry if you got to move. So we've got everything in between. We've got car kits. We've got stuff for dogs coming out. We've got personal things. But the reality is we try to build kits that have a very wide range of coverage, but does it once or twice versus like 100 Band-Aids. And I think that's the right thing, because if you're going to have an injury, you're probably going to go home and then you restock and then you're good to go.
Yep.
So we try to think of it that way, because you don't want to carry 40 pounds of crap. You're going to leave it. If you're going to go hunting right now, you're going to go hike up these hills, and I'm like, take a first aid kit. It's 5 pounds, and you'll be like,
yeah, no, that's
roll
like
the dice.
My first aid kit that I had for going out west was a kit I bought from Walmart.
Yeah.
And it was like this big thick thing that had, like I said, a million Band-Aids and random shit in there that
it's
it was
half the size of your tent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I ended up like taking like most of it out anyways, and then putting it in a different bag. And it was just like, I started like learning like, okay, first of all, if I don't know how to use certain things, it's not not beneficial to me at all.
True.
So,
very true.
Like
very true.
Being able to learn that, and that's why I'd taken some, I haven't taken any wilderness first aid, which is on my list of things I want to do, but just some basic first aid, CPR, all that type of classes.
It's Americans, I know, maybe everybody, they're reactive, not proactive.
Yeah.
And we've had the luxury of becoming that way.
Yep.
Like, I'm hungry. Okay, well, push a button. Food's going to be here in 5 minutes. It used to be like you had to plan ahead and get some food for the winter, or you're going to die. It's kind of the same thing with emergency stuff. Everybody just expects that they're going to hit a button and emergency services are going to show up. But a lot of the places you and I spend a lot of time, that's not happening.
No.
So you have to be self-sufficient for yourself and for someone else. And everybody thinks I'm some kind of doomsday prepper bunker guy. Like, I am not at all. I'm a guy, they always say mess with the bully, get the horns. Like, I've gotten the horns a lot. Like, I've just done a lot of stuff. I've been injured a ton. My dog's been injured. My friends have been injured. And it's not that we're bad. We're just out there doing things like you are. And things happen. And, when I go to the events and we sell, it's like the people that always get it right away are like the military, the first responders, the ski patrol, guys that have been around that stuff. They realize how easy it can happen.
Yeah.
So my mission is to try to educate people and let them know, hey, and convince them that, hey, I'm going to take this stuff with me before they have to have a bad experience that convinces them otherwise.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. And it's so easy to, like you said, and even to overlook little things. Like the other day, we went for a trail run in the morning.
Yeah.
We went, me, you, and Eric, we went for a trail run way back down. We were actually just talking about BMX.
We were, yeah.
And I wasn't paying attention, and I rolled my ankle coming down off the hill pretty good. And, but luckily we weren't too far from where we were staying at. But even when we got down there, it was like, you had the wrap and everything. We wrapped it up. It got me. I was able to keep doing my thing throughout the day. There's little things that can happen.
And I've rolled my ankle like 1,000 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I've got pins in one. So it's just another thing where it's like experience is a wonderful teacher.
And I will say you gave me some really good advice so I've rolled my ankle a ton of times and never really knew the right process as far as like getting through that. You kept telling me, you're like, keep moving on it, lightly, not, just keep moving it, keep it loose, and then put ice on it. And I kept moving some more and then ice. And then the next day, I didn't know if I was going to be doing too much the rest of this week, and it's healing up pretty good. But
yeah, and that comes from me being way the F out there, rolling my ankle and being like, I guess I got to walk home. And then I get home and it's like, it actually feels better.
Yeah.
Versus you do it at the gym and you immediately put your foot up and you ice it and then it locks up and you take stays. So again, experience is a wonderful teacher, and I would recommend everybody turn to somebody that had, I talk to Barklow a lot, and I like to absorb from those guys. They've seen things, they've done things. I want to know how to handle things from their experience, not have to live it firsthand.
Yeah. And for anyone that's listening or watching, there'll be a pretty cool video coming out down the road with you and Barklow kind of going through your kits and explaining, someone like Barklow that's been all over the world in different scenarios, and the way that you have and the way you think about building out these kits and going through it, it's pretty, I think it'll be pretty cool. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, it was a fun conversation. I really look up to that guy, and he has a wealth of experience. And so it's almost a little intimidating to be just conversationally talking to him about this stuff, because mostly I have questions. Yeah. But I think we actually both learned some stuff, and it was really fun. I think it's going to be very informative. So it was good.
So I wanted to ask you about your 4 pillars that you have, and kind of just look at that a little bit.
Sure. So where that started, what 4 pillars is, it's a bi-weekly email we push out with 4 little blog form, articles for people. It's absolutely free. And where this came from was I get a lot of emails and direct messages from people that are like, okay, I'm freaked out. I'm in. What do I buy? And if I was like, oh, go buy our 72 Pro and you're good, I'd be completely dishonest, right?
Yep.
Tools are part of it, for sure. But that bothered me because we were selling products, but I definitely believe in education and all these different things. So long story short, I went down to Phoenix. I met with my buddy Travis Haley, who's a really well-known former Force Recon Marine and just a brilliant guy. And we were going to do a podcast, and he was like, let's break this down. I'm like, let's build this out. So we whiteboarded for a day and a half, everything from changing a car tire to the best dog for home protection if you have a little kid, to how to grow a garden, all these things. And basically we were able to funnel them into 4 pillars. And what the 4 pillars are is resources. So that's like gear. Resourcefulness. If you have a fishing pole, can you catch a fish? Community, and then mental and physical fitness. And our belief was, everybody's got different experiences. They're good in some areas. They're light in other areas. So it's not like a program where you start at day 1, you have to follow this regimented plan, but they're just articles on hey, have you ever thought about, here's how to get warm. John just did an article for us on rewarming, right? So here's a great skill to have. If you don't have it, put it in your toolbox. And my goal is to help people kind of build up these toolboxes of not only getting better physical fitness and maybe mental durability, but thinking about the gear they have. They need to add some things. Do they know how to change a car tire? Maybe you should go practice before it's 20 below zero and you're all alone and your hands are frozen. So the idea there is just to stack a bunch of knowledge for people. It's absolutely free. We bring in people like John, like Michael Easter, who wrote The Comfort Crisis. Guys like that are contributing. And,
love Michael.
He's a good buddy. And I'm here just trying to, I want to lay in my deathbed someday and be like, we saved a bunch of lives.
Yeah.
For me, that's the goal. And so however I can do that, we obviously have to make money and keep the lights on, but I'm trying to do everything I can to just support that mission.
No, and I love that you're doing that, because education is so strong with me, and that's what my whole goal of everything I'm doing here is education, help build skills, whether it's hunting skills, whether it's any type of skills that can help make somebody better, or be prepared for a particular situation, have success, live a better life. And when it comes down to the roots of it, I guess. But I think that educational standpoint is so big, and I'm always constantly trying to learn and see what others are doing and thinking about, because that is one thing. I actually just thought about this the other day. I bought a new truck. Okay, so I'm like, I haven't even really looked to where my jack is and how that works.
Right.
I put a lift and bigger tires on. Is that jack still going to work with it? You start thinking about these. I was thinking about that actually on the way here, and I was like, I got some work to do. I don't want to be in the middle of nowhere in Utah and all of a sudden I break down by myself, there's no cell service, what am I going to do to be able to go through those things? And
you have to become like a student of wanting to just continually learn and acquire skills and learn new things. I said this the other day in talking to John, but I always go back to how people say they practice yoga. And I love that saying because that means you've never fully become an expert. Yeah. You're always practicing. You're always getting better. And like my PR team, so I was like, oh, Christian, he's a survival expert. I'm like, please don't say that because I don't think of myself that way. I think of myself as somebody that thinks about it a lot and is acquiring skills, but has a lot to learn. And I think as long as you stay hungry about that, that keeps you on an edge. That's going to always help you kind of, like you just said, if you're like, I'm an expert, I got this, you might not worry about your jack. Like I can figure it out, but that's the wrong mentality.
That's 100% the wrong mentality.
Always, it's like hunting, right? You can have all your skills and like totally dialed, and then some bull elk will do something that'll teach you something new.
Yeah, no, and like for example, I'm planning to go to Alaska here shortly, and it was like I've set up a tent a million times. I've done these things, but I still get out my gear and go through it again before I go, and just like, okay, do I have all my stakes? Do I have all this stuff? Get it? Because for me, the whole planning part is to make a better experience of these things that you want to do. You want, like Alaska, for me, going on a moose hunt, that's like a dream hunt for me, a bucket list thing. I want to have the best experience possible, and I know things are going to come up that are going to try to derail that. What can I do ahead of time to make sure that derailing is the least impactful on the whole trip?
I'd be curious what you are doing to plan for this hunt, because here's what I do. Like, I've had an Alaska hunt in the past, or British Columbia. You're so excited for months leading up. Like first it's like physical fitness. The better in shape you are, the quicker you can move, the less tired you're going to be at the end of the day. I mean, those are physical endeavors. And if you're just smoked, it's going to compromise your shot. It's going to compromise maybe your ability to close the distance when it really matters. So I get up in the mornings and I work out, and in the winter I'll run on a treadmill and I will watch YouTube videos of whatever species I'm hunting in whatever environment I'm hunting in, because I want to know what the weather's like. I want to know what that grass looks like. I want to know how those animals are acting. So when I get there, it's like, I've seen this before. It's not totally new. Yep. And if you have these things that like are a little more familiar, it allows your brain to worry about the things that are going to pop up that you didn't plan for.
Yep.
So as well as a gear, it's like a mental preparation. It's almost like visualization, and then it's like getting yourself in the best shape you can. And I do a lot of things like that just to make sure when I show up, it's like I've given myself every advantage I can. Because to your point, if your brain is really busy trying to figure out a bunch of things in the moment, you're going to fall short on the things that you want to be focused on, which is probably making a good shot or whatever it is.
Yeah, and so I'll start broad, and then I'll kind of get into specifics with this hunt. But what I've learned, this actually came from me starting to do Western hunting, and I've learned from people like Mark Livesey, who are big on hunt planning, and he does it like mostly with the e-scouting aspect, and then Barklow too, is I've molded, like even for my whitetail hunts at home, places I've hunted my whole life, I create these hunt plans that I go through, and my hunt plans consist of 3 to 5 areas that I plan to hunt with 3 to 5 specific locations within them. And for whitetail specifically, it's like, okay, these specific locations, what wind directions do I need? What's my access look like? And I have all this stuff laid out. So then when I get into it and all of a sudden there's all these people there, and the spot's blown out, or maybe it was a drought and the food's not there, whatever it might be, I can shift by looking at this and not getting stressed and be like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go, because I've done this out west. I went in and I couldn't find elk in a place I was supposed to, and I had to drive an hour and a half to go get cell service back in town, and I'm trying to re-download maps and find a new area to go to, and it was terrible. So I look at that, but the other portion of my hunt plan is I have like a full-on emergency list of like, where are the nearest gas stations, where's the nearest laundromats, where's the nearest food, where can I get ice at, where's the taxidermy, where's where can I, the butcher shops, hotels, I mean, everything. And I have addresses, phone numbers, all that stuff listed out and have it there. But I also have, I print it out, and I have a copy in my first aid kit. Cool. I have a copy in my truck, and then I give one to my hunting partner. So and in an emergency contact. So if I were to get hurt and I was unconscious, who would be the people that need to be notified to be able to go through that? And it's gives me a peace of mind. I have this list to go through. I do it whether I'm elk hunting, whether I'm deer hunting. Alaska is a little different where I'm going to be in one spot, so the area thing's not as much, but still having these plans listed out. And then I actually just use John's checklist for hunts that he has for Knowledge from Storms to go through and look at other things, making sure downloading all my maps on my phone, that I have a backup. So I'll have an inReach that has mapping.
Yep.
My watch has mapping on. So I have, 3 different ways of backing up these things to be able to go into it. Have all that stuff dialed ahead of time before I go. So I'm not thinking about it. That's not a problem with it. But then like you said, so like I work with a trainer, Todd Bumgardner, through Human Predator Pack Mule, and he helps me with the training program for getting ready to go out. So I'm doing some sort of training, every day as far as a physical fitness standpoint. And sometimes it's some of them hard workouts, some of them aren't. They're just building that consistency and being able to do that. But like you said, the same thing. If I'm doing anything on a treadmill or if I'm running or doing anything, I'll have a podcast that's associated with that. Yep. I've found it's a little bit more of a struggle with moose hunting, as it's not as much widespread information as deer or elk, because just not as many people do it, essentially.
Right.
So luckily I have a buddy that I've had on the podcast before, Adam Grenda, who lives in Alaska, and I'm doing some consulting with him. He does moose hunting a lot, and I'm like, I want to learn everything. So it's like, for me, it's like, all right, I'm paying all this money for this hunt. I'll pay somebody else to be able to help me gain some more knowledge to make that hunt,
absolutely,
more efficient and go through that. And then the last thing is really the gear aspect and getting it all laid out, packing my bag, making sure I know where everything's at. Is my first aid kit stocked? Did I use something before that I didn't have, and are things expired? And just kind of going through and even just brushing up on those skills, because when you don't use them, you forget them pretty easily.
Oh, they're what's the word? Everybody else uses that word. Not diminishing, perishable. They're perishable skills. If you don't stick with them and use them, it's like shooting your bow. If you set it down for a few months and pick it up, it's like, whoa, it feels weird.
Yep.
I mean, everybody knows that feeling. So, it's you're doing everything right, in my opinion. I think it's great to hear that. I wish more people had that mentality, because, and like I said earlier, I'm not a fear monger at all. I don't.
You're not. I wouldn't call you a prepper, like from the way that it's.
No.
People think of preppers sometimes. Guys in their basement that have all this stuff stacked up, and it's like, I wouldn't consider that being.
No, I'm not that at all. I've got a truck with a topper and a deck system, and it's full of, like, no matter where the day takes me, I'm like ready to go.
Yeah,
and I love that. I like the idea of not only taking care of myself and the people around me, but if you come across a stranded motorist and you can help them, or like, that's cool. That's the way humans should be, I think. Another stat I always kind of preach on is Freud was most famously credited with talking about survival of the fittest. But what he spent most of his time on was the power of community, and how humans only got through anything working together, whether it was like bringing down a woolly mammoth or an invading army or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And now we have this society where, like, I think statistically it's like 80 or 90% of the people in the United States don't know their neighbors. And then you wonder why there's so much craziness going on, right? Like, we don't have community anymore. And I think a way to do that is to look out for each other and take care of each other. So if I can be of service to somebody, that's going to pay it forward in a lot of ways. And if we can do that at scale, I think it's really meaningful. So I just think it's a great way to live and a great way to be. And it doesn't mean you're fearful. It doesn't mean you're a prepper. It doesn't mean you're hoping for an earthquake. It's just like, I think you should live a big life, and you should go push yourself. You should do hard things. And sometimes you might break a leg.
Yeah.
And that's okay, but just be ready for it.
Yeah. And you're spot on. And like, I want to experience as many things that I possibly can, and trying to do all those things. And that's not, and I know when anybody listening be like, wow, you must have a lot of time on your hands to be able to go through that. And it's the reality of it is, no, I don't. But like, you find time in these it's just little things all the time that add up. I'm not sitting there, going through all these things in one day or a week. And it's just like 5 minutes here, 15 minutes here, like while you're doing a workout, all this stuff. And like, I'm always jotting down notes and stuff. And I have whenever I have a trip, I have just a random, I call it like brain dump Google Docs of like this trip, and anything I randomly think about, I'll just throw a bullet point in there. And then I'll go through and, categorize it a little bit more later and get those thoughts. But I just try to dump everything I'm thinking about on paper or on your phone or whatever, to be able to think about that. And what's your kind of you talked about a little bit, but your process, like preparing for a hunt or you're going on some sort of adventure there.
I control the controllables, right? Like the thing you can control is how good of a shot you are.
Yep.
You can control how good a shape you're in. You can control how well your boots fit.
Yep.
You can control having all those maps downloaded.
Yep.
So no matter what, you're like, I know where I am. I know where I need to go. When you start controlling all those things, there's less uncertainty. And for me, less uncertainty means more success. So I've done hunts where I've literally laid out gear for a month ahead of time in my basement. I've got it all laid out. And I'll go downstairs after work and I'll look at it and be like, I'll swap these socks out for different socks.
Yeah.
Maybe, it's too many socks. Or maybe I don't need that much under, or whatever. And I'll just keep doing that and doing that and doing that. And I mean, honestly, when I pack up to go, I'm still uncertain about things, but I've given it so much thought and consideration. I'm pretty darn close, I think, to a good solution.
Yeah.
Like, I know some guys, they just pack the night before, and boy, that you're going on a moose hunt in Alaska, that is a massive investment of resources, time, money, energy. I mean, there's a lot going into that.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is get to 250 yards on the trophy of a lifetime and miss because you didn't shoot your gun enough, or get to 50 yards and miss because you didn't shoot your bow enough, or you hadn't figured out how to control your adrenaline. So you got to do those things.
Yeah.
Just anything that was in your control, just have it second nature.
Yeah.
And then from there, enjoy the adventure.
Yeah, no, man, you're spot on. Like this Alaska hunt is like that's something that takes another level of preparedness, because I can't just go back to my vehicle. I'm getting dropped off at a lake, like there's and getting your meat home and planning your travel to get from the airport to where you're flying out of, and there's all these little things that have to come to it, and you can't just start the night before and do that, and I would argue you shouldn't even do that. Like you said, even if you're just going whitetail hunting or whatever, like I always like to have my bag packed ready and go through my gear. I practice with it, so I'm not going in the dark and fumbling around stuff, whether it's something stupid, like I'm not actually getting hurt, but I could potentially screw up the hunt or do something, because it's something that I could have controlled by just having a little bit of preparedness with doing that task. And that's so, it's just the more I do these things and the more hunts I get to do, which I'm so thankful that I get to do those things, but it's easy to start getting lax with it when you start doing it, to try to make sure you go through your system and plan all of that stuff out.
And the trick is being really vigilant about that, because you're going on a moose hunt, you're excited about it, thinking about it for a long time. You're going to prep for that one. But going out to the tree stand that you've sat in 100 times, you can let your guard down.
Yeah.
And I find that most times that's when something happens. Pretty famous story in my life. My dog almost died ski touring with me last winter, and I was able to patch him up and get him down. But we ski tour almost every morning, and he's almost 6 years old. Talking hundreds of times, we've ski toured and never had anything happen. And then one day he almost dies. And it's kind of like that. It's like you're going to your same spot over and over and over. It's almost like it's like, let's say the chance is 1 in 100 and you've done it 85 times. Well, guess what? Now it's 1 in 15. Like it might just happen soon. So that's something else to consider.
Yeah, no, it's and like, so I was talking about it. Jason, the founder of Timber Ninja, so he had come out with this product. He has a safety background too, and doing this stuff, but like, when you're hunting from an elevated position, it was like, okay, harnesses or your saddle, like that's going to prevent you from falling to the ground. But what do you do if you fell off and you can't reach your stick, or you're just hanging there? Now you have suspension trauma. And it was something that you just clip onto your thing. It pops out, and it's a little ladder system that you can use with your foot. Get in there and stand up and take that pressure off and get to a point. There's these little things you don't think about with something as simple as just going deer hunting and having those thoughts with it. And it's just, there's so many little things that can help you in that and all of that realm. Absolutely.
We love it because it's wild. It's the backcountry and it's nature.
Yeah.
But it's also wild and it's the backcountry. There's yings and yangs to everything. And so, like you said, there isn't a Sportsman's Warehouse probably where you're going moose hunting.
No,
within striking distance. You have to be thoughtful and take everything you can in there.
What about, all right, so going back, we talked about a little bit earlier about vehicles and, kind of your everyday stuff that you're carrying in vehicles. Are there any things that stand out to you? I'm not going to ask you to go through every single thing, but things that you believe that everybody should have in their vehicles, especially, sportsmen, women that are like going out and doing things.
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember the top 3 things by a long shot that happen, or that are like vehicle emergencies is you run out of gas, it's a dead battery, or it's a flat tire. That's like 90% of all car problems.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have an extra spare? Do you know how to change it? Do you have a patch kit? That's one. Battery. We sell a thing called the Zeus. It's a little jump starter. So jumper cables are great. You need somebody else.
Yep.
With this thing, you don't. So I think having one of those, it should be a no-brainer.
Yep.
You come back from the trailhead, you've been hunting for 5 days, you left a dome light on, and now your battery's dead, and there's no cell service for miles. Like, that's a real problem. And one of these guys, it's actually 20 seconds. You pop the hood, put it on, turn the key, you drive away. So that's an important thing, in my opinion, is making sure you can always start your vehicle. And then gas, you can carry extra gas. Just I tend to think you should never be below half a tank if you're really going somewhere where there's, I don't care if you're going on the freeway and you're, next exit's 80 mile, like fill up, just keep it topped off. Those 3 things are going to get you a long ways. After that, it comes down to traction devices, visibility. In my truck, I haven't done it yet with the truck I have now, but I love winches. I have one on my side-by-side.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been stuck before where there's just no other way to get it out, but you can wrap the thing around a tree and pull yourself out. Like that is a nice tool to be self-sufficient.
Yeah.
And visibility is a big one. I've got some really bright lights on my truck because where I live, it's pretty steep on both sides of the road driving in, and elk and deer run across all the time. And when I first moved there, several times I almost hit them. So now I've got these floodlights that they aren't road legal, but when I'm driving home, I can turn them on.
Yep.
I can see animals coming from 150 yards instead of 20 yards.
Yep.
It's just doing things like that to put yourself in a position to be able to respond. So those things for me are really important. As far as what's in the kit, I've got a full survival kit. I've got toe straps. I've got stuff in the cab. I've got stuff in the back, and kind of everywhere. But that's who I am in this world.
Yeah.
But I think some good first aid. I think the right tools. I think traction devices, things like that are important. But it really comes down to the season. Is it cold? Do you have some extra blankets? Is it the middle of summer and it's 100, do you have extra water? It's not rocket science. Just think about what you might need, and the car has a lot of room. Like, put it in there.
Yeah.
Be ready.
And think about where you put the stuff too. So this is something that I've learned was like, so in my truck, I have basically 3 different kits that are in there. I have one that stays under the back seat that I can get to no matter what. I can get to quickly.
Good.
That has my first aid kit, and it has my jump starter pack in it. And I'm trying to think what else I have in that. But it's just like simple things that I don't have to crawl my truck bed or like do, or maybe, you're at a place where you can't even get into that portion. So it's like, or you have a whole bunch of gear stacked in there or whatever. It's hard to get to. So I have that there. And then in the back, I have one that's like kind of your either self-recovery or recovering somebody else. I have a high lift jack with their like come along kit that goes along with it to be able to utilize. I got extra toe straps. I've got different hooks that go into your receiver to be able to hook up to, and D-rings, and just things like that you can get out of it. And then I have just like my, ones that you probably don't need as much. Like I keep a little electric chainsaw in there in case there's a tree down across the road and you're back in somewhere, or, and then just a regular hand saw that I have, and an axe, and just little things that I try to think of my specific scenarios and where I'm at and what that, applies to. Somebody else might be a little bit different, but but the winch thing, first of all, guys love winches. Like, if you don't like a winch,
they're just fun.
Yeah. They're just cool. I'd like to get a winch on my truck, but my workaround for the time being has been like the come along system and having that. But I don't love that my new Tundra doesn't have tow hooks on the front, which I think is the dumbest thing ever, to be able to have a recovery point. So it's like a winch is kind of your option with that, unless I were to replace the bumper. But
big steel bumpers are fun too.
Yeah, that's cool too.
I got a long list of things when I get a little more money that I'm gonna do that truck, but I'm with you right there.
Yeah.
It would take me a long time to go through everything in my truck, but it sounds like everything you've got there. That's right. I've got all those same things, and But also it just depends on where you are and what you're doing. If you're out in nature, you want axes and saws and things like that. If you're in an urban environment, it might be something different. So it's really specialized for people and how they live and where they're going. And do you have kids and do you have medical needs that are personal to you? And one of my favorite quotes is the best camera is the one in your hand. Right.
Yeah.
And I always say it's the same thing with sort of first aid or anything like that. You can have the best stuff in the world, but if it's not accessible and usable, it's like you don't have anything. So just have the right stuff in your hand because it's going to make a big difference.
Yeah. Stephen Drake has said that before. Like I've seen him, I took a photography class with him before I knew him years ago. And he was talking about cameras, and that's everybody's first question that wants to get into photography. He's like, what camera should I get? And he's like, whatever's going to be accessible. He's like, if you don't have it right there readily available, there's a clip on your pack or whatever, then your iPhone's probably your best bet. And like, what do you mean? It's like, cause that's what you're going to use if it's there. But if it's tucked down in your pack, you're not going to be able to, to go through and be able to use that. And that's, I don't know. I found that was like, that's so applicable in so many other.
And that guy gets moments, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Some of his photos, I'm just like, how did you get that?
Yeah. But, no, you're spot on there, but I don't know. It's just like it's not like you said. It's not always about all the things that you have. It's knowing how to use it, accessibility of it, and just like, and a lot of this stuff for me has really come from just messing up or like finding these little twerks or tweaks and things. Like I'll go camping in the summer just to practice for this stuff. Just go truck camping. I'll just go out and some public land that I have near my house and just go out and go camping and just bring all the stuff that I probably don't need to go there, but just to use it and, use your stove. And when I go on long trips, I always take a 5-gallon jerry can of gas with me. I'll keep that with me. And then also an extra thing of water. And then I always keep water purifiers in my truck too. So just, it sounds like a lot as I'm saying it, but it's really not the kind of,
It's really not. And like, if you're interested in this stuff, like not to a shameless plug, but we've built these kits for you. You can buy one of our kits and you've probably got 95% of it. And then you just go, okay, what else do I need for my personal situation and add it and go.
What your kits are cool is like the one, and I apologize, I don't know the name of it, but it's like the dry bag where you pull everything out.
Yeah, the 72, yeah.
And it's got like everything labeled exactly, the emergency food and like everything that you would need if you were to be stuck somewhere.
Well, when I started this business, I looked at kits that were out there. And again, I said earlier, I like to reverse engineer from the time of emergency. There are some people that train and practice and get ready for these things, and they know where things are. But most people aren't going to spend a ton of time thinking about how do I navigate this emergency situation and then this one and this one and this one. So what happens is you get, and that's where the name Uncharted comes from. It's like if you're somewhere you haven't been, and it's not a fearful thing, but you're going to find yourself in a situation where it's like, geez, this has never happened before. And adrenaline spikes. And when adrenaline spikes, your vision gets narrow and you start making bad situations worse. So with all of our products, there's really clear like step-by-step instructions for all sorts of things. It's all color coordinated with the pockets. Like one of my favorite things to do, and I'm showing off the 72 or the 72 Pro, is we call it the insert. That's the organizer that sits inside the bag. But I open it up and I go, okay, grab, like, you need first aid. And I always watch everybody's eyes go right to the red pouch.
Yep.
And that eliminates 7 other pouches, and so right away now you're making the situation better. Yep. You're not digging through just a backpack full of stuff looking for that one thing and your stuff's scattered and disorganized. Maybe it's getting dirty or wet. It's like you go right to the first aid. And if you can start stacking those little wins, that helps your adrenaline calm down. It helps you just start seeing clearly, making better decisions. And that's a really important thing that we focus on, is not just high quality gear, but guiding people. Like I want to be like a hand on somebody's shoulders.
Almost like you're there with them. Like,
going, okay, step 1, do this. Great. Okay, now step 2. Like that's my goal with our products, so if you've never been outside before, you can go, okay, I did that. Now what's next? Okay, I did that. Okay, things are getting better. The bleeding has stopped or whatever it is. Yeah.
No, you're exactly right. And also just to let everybody know here, like, Christian and I are buddies. Like, I'm not sponsored by Uncharted, none of this stuff. Like, I just really like what you're doing, the products that you're doing, and what the use case scenario is. Because again, I've been not in like any really bad situations, but in situations where I see these things helping. Like, even like, okay, you pack a pack to go anywhere. I like to organize things so I have a bunch of little bags of gear that's in there. make sure those color bags are different than what your first aid kit is. So like you're diving through, it's like, okay, this is easy. And I always keep my first aid kit in the lid of my pack or on an outside pocket versus down where my kill kit is at the bottom, because I don't need that kill kit until I shoot something. At that point, I'll tear my whole bag apart. I don't care.
Right.
You know, but it's like, and it's the same thing with my rain jacket. You know, they're in places that usually with my first aid kit, easily accessible, being able to get it, make it simpler for yourself.
That's such a good point when people are packing for hunts or thinking about this. It's like, think about the use case. You're hiking. Oh crap, it's raining.
Yep.
Like, the best thing you can do is stay dry, because once you get wet, you get cold, right? So you need to get that rain gear on fast.
Yep.
So is it in the top of your pack? Is first aid in the top of your pack? Water. Probably don't need food in the top of your pack, because if you're eating, you're probably going to stop and take some time, and you're comfortable in your car.
I don't know. I don't think I agree with you on that, man. I like having my food easily accessible.
I mean, keep some snacks nearby, but like the big, you know.
I'm just kidding.
The big ready meals and everything. Like there's things like the sleeping bag. Put in the bottom, things like that. So I always think about that. And without fail, every time I'm on a hunt, I change what I thought was going to work based on what's happening. It might be really rainy or it's just dry out. So, I'll put the rain gear a little deeper this time.
Yeah.
But it's just stacking skills. It's stacking experience. I think half the fun of like I love being successful on a hunt, but I just love being out there in the animals, in the nature, like feeling it, hearing it, immersing yourselves in it, and you got to enjoy the process, right?
Yep.
That's what I'm getting to. Like, whether it's the gear, I mean, you buy all this gear, have fun with it, play with it, see what works. Yeah, get to know it. It's the way I think about things.
Yep. No, I love that, man. And the last one piece of gear I want to bring up, and something I may be taking with me to Alaska, is your raft.
Yeah,
because that's like I feel like that is my favorite thing to see at Total Archery Challenge, and you have the booth set up and you're filling up that raft. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's my party trick.
Yeah.
So we call it the Rapid Raft, and it weighs 3.8 pounds. It'll hold 400 and inflates. I've done it in like 25 seconds. I probably had a little bit of a breeze going on. You can inflate it really quick and doesn't require any tools. So if you're going on a big pack raft trip, this isn't the raft. It's not a huge raft, but if you're going to Alaska and you got to pack game out and there's rivers, you got to cross little place. It's so great because there's a very small weight penalty, and it's really, really, really durable. So as our company has become more established and people trust us more, we're selling more and more rafts. But when we first launched it, people were like, they didn't know what to do with it because they didn't believe us. I think they thought it was a pool toy. But the backstory is my buddy Seth Carlstrom, who's a designer in Bozeman, he's designed for all the big brands. They came across a military request for a way to get across irrigation canals in Afghanistan for the military. So really quick, how do we get across this really fast and pack it back up and be lightweight? What ended up winning the bid was like a bridge system. But Seth's approach on this was this raft.
Yeah.
And he spent a lot of time on it, and it was just it's really brilliant. But it didn't get picked. And he's like, what do I do with this thing? And he's showing it to me, and I'm like, I think we can change this a little bit and use it with Uncharted, because it's very much a survival tool if you have a high water situation or a hurricane, but it can also be very much an adventure tool. So we worked for a year making the material more durable. So the raft is, the material is like 8 times more stretch and tear resistant than the competitors of the same denier, which is like the thickness. It's a really tough little raft. And at Total Archery, you just walk out there and you take this little, it looks like a small loaf of bread. Yeah. You roll it open, you just scoop some air and you roll it, and you do a couple puffs on the one-way valve, and you've got a fully inflated raft. And people just can't believe it. But it's a really cool product. And again, I like to do things with Uncharted that are different than everybody else and kind of solve for things that people aren't solving for. And that's just a classic example. It's a really cool thing.
Yeah, and I want to say for the whitetail hunters that are listening here, water access has grown quite a bit in this space, and things, sometimes it's just crossing a river, and it's like you don't want to lug a canoe down there or do anything. Things that are like simple like that. I haven't used it, so I can't say that, but it seems like that would be something that would make a whole lot of sense.
It's whether it's getting yourself across something or you tie a long lead on it, and you've got let's say you've got a river you can walk out, or a big body of water, and you can put 200, 300, 400 pounds in that thing, and you don't have to carry it.
That would have been really nice for the deer I shot in 2020 when I had to take it across this river, and I took paracord and I tied the antlers to my belt loop because it was flowing pretty good.
Just drug it.
And I was like, Listen, if this deer gets swept away, I want to go with it. Like, I'm not like it's probably not a smart move, but I was like, this is the biggest deer I've ever shot in my life, and I need to get across this river. That would have been nice to throw it on a little raft that I could inflate and bring it across.
Bo, let go of the deer.
Yeah.
Never.
No, I'm not doing it.
He's too big. Oh, that's awesome. No, it's a fun tool. We build a lot of stuff that, for me, and you're probably the same, like, the gear's fun and I like to have gear, but at the same time, like, I want to move fast. I want to feel free. I don't want to be weighed down by a ton of stuff. So when we build stuff, I'm always like, how do you make this so it doesn't flop while you're running? How do you make it so you forget you have it on?
Yeah.
Because I think we would all love to just run through the fields with like some shorts and a bow and arrow, and just be old school, but that's not the reality of how we do things. But I'm trying to get to that feeling as much as possible.
Yeah, and I balance the gear junkie in me, and then trying to keep things simple and at the same time. But it's a tough balance. Gear's fun.
Yeah, it's so fun.
It is, and a lot of times I've found like I'll try to I'll like a piece of gear, and I'm like, where can I use this? Versus probably the right way of doing it is like, okay, I have a problem. What do I need for it? But
I do that too. I walk in, it's like it's funny how you never have considered some kind of product, and you just see it in the right presentation, and then it just doesn't leave your mind.
Yeah. Well, as I'm saying that, like I was talking about your raft, I'm picturing the spot that I scouted. I'm like, oh man, I could either walk in 3 miles or I could walk 100 yards to the water, get across, and I'm right there. And it's just like you start thinking of these things in your head. And
that's a big difference.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, for sure.
But so Christian, is there anything else you think that you'd want to leave the audience with before we kind of close this out?
Boy. Look, we're a small business. It's my life savings is in this thing. We're grinding hard.
Yeah.
I just appreciate, the spotlight you're throwing on us. And if people come by, if we're at a Total Archery event or wherever, just come say hi. I'm really proud of my team. We work really hard to make good stuff and also provide education for people. So whether you see us in person or find us online, if you've got questions, hit us up. We're trying to be helpful. We're trying to do something, meaningful, and that's our goal. So if you got ideas, if you got questions, whatever it is, like we want to be interactive with people and understand what their needs are and, the things they're trying to solve for and trying to be the best brand or company we can be. So that's kind of it, man. I really believe in authenticity and doing the right thing. And it might be a slower grower than doing it the other way. But that's what we've really tried to do is just be really thoughtful in what we're making and really be core to the audiences that we're familiar with. I mean, we do a lot of hunting stuff because I'm obsessed with hunting.
Yeah.
So, but it also makes better product because I understand it.
Yep.
If I was making gardening tools, I probably wouldn't be so good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's it. It's pretty simple. Come say hi. Come check us out. Give us a hard time if we're not doing something right, and we'll get better.
That's it's funny at these events. We do enough shit talking with each other that if you have any sort of hurt feelings, I think all of us have some thick skin after doing this stuff. So give it to Christian if you see something wrong.
Yeah.
But so Uncharted Supply Co. Instagram, Facebook, all the social channels. UnchartedSupplyCo.com. Is that right?
That's correct.
And
I mean, look, we spend a lot on digital ads. If you type in my name or Uncharted or Uncharted First Aid or Survive, we're going to show up.
Yep.
So.
And then definitely sign up for the email newsletter for the pillars.
Yeah.
I think that's super beneficial. I love email newsletters that have substance to it. It's not always just an ad. It's got something that I could take from it. There's, ones I love, and I try to make my own that way too with my East Meets West one. Try to make it something that's like, okay, people are getting some value out of it.
My perspective is like, there's 4 topics. You 3 of them might not be interesting to you, but I'm hoping one is every other week. And if you can acquire a skill every other week, boy, in a year or 2 years, you've really changed your position.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I'll put all the notes to the links and everything in the show notes here. But Christian,
cool, man.
Thanks for coming on, brother.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. See ya.
You bet.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.